Okay, so go to page 181. Go to page 181. We're going to learn a little bit of the Noahide laws.
181.
181. 181.
Yeah, 181. Yes. నీవు కూడా ఎందుకు మోటార్ అంతలా
మర్చిపోయాను నా కూడా నేను కూడా ఇన్ని పనులు చేయను
Okay, so on page 181, we learn that we're not allowed to make a statue or an image. That means like a picture of an idol. We know that. We cannot make a statue of an image of an idol. But that applies. It doesn't matter whether you make it for yourself or you tell others to make it for you. And even if you have no thought to worship it, you cannot make an idol even though you're not going to worship it. Still cannot make it. And you also cannot have a business where you make idols for other people. Because you might say, I'm not worshiping it, but other people are worshiping it. I'll just make it. So are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed to make it for other people? No, we're not allowed to make it for other people. It's also forbidden to buy, this is number 2, forbidden to buy a statue or an image of an idol, even if you have no thought to serve it, because you cannot own or keep property of any type of idol, even if this particular person will not serve at all. Number 3, it is also forbidden to make types of statues for decoration. So let's say I don't want to serve this idol. I just want to have it for a decoration. It just looks nice. I think this idol looks really nice. Are you allowed to do that? Are you allowed to have an idol that looks nice? What do you say?
No.
No.
No. You cannot have an idol, even though you're not going to serve it, and it just is for decoration. You cannot make it.
Yes.
Because
I read somewhere, one thing I read, that Abraham father used to sell idols, right? Abraham.
yeah.
Sell idols. So at that time, people used to go and worship the idols. So what Abraham used to do, that he used to go and break the idols. After breaking the idols, he used to say that when the idol cannot protect itself from breaking down, how can it protect you? He used to tell people like that.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, it's true that they can't protect themselves. Then how can they protect us like that?
Because you put the hammer in the hands of the biggest idol, and he said that this idol smashed all the other idols. So his father said, how can this idol smash the other idols? An idol has no energy, cannot think, cannot feel, cannot move. So Abraham said to his father, why do you worship it? If it can't move, it can't think, it can't do, there's no energy, why do you worship it?
Yes.
And then so his father was named Terach. So Terach told the king, whose name was Nimrod, what happened, what Abraham did.
Yes.
So Nimrod captured Abraham and threw him into a fire. And the miracle was that he was not burned by the fire. He walked around and they're like beautiful trees, like popped up, beautiful trees. So it's the same thing. The same thing like Hanukkah is the same thing with Abraham. Because we remember what was the miracle of Hanukkah? The miracle of Hanukkah is the candles did not get burned. They didn't get burned. They lit for 8 days. It never burned. So
Yes.
Abraham was the first Hanukkah. He was like the first holiday of Hanukkah because he gave his whole soul, he gave his whole being, sacrificed his whole life to bring out the truth of God.
Yeah.
He sacrificed his whole life. And what happened? You would think he would get burned because the Nimrod would throw him into the fire, he would get burned, but he didn't get burned. God made a miracle. So if you want miracles to happen, you want to see miracles, you have to give your whole life over to God. Everything. You can't hold back even a little bit. Like we Jews, when a Jewish woman is married, she goes into what's called a mikvah. A mikvah is like 40 gallons of water from the rain, and she goes and dips in the water 3 times, and then she comes out, she's pure, and she's able to be with her husband. She does this after her period. After her period, she waits until the period stops, then she goes in the mikvah, she dunks in, and then she comes out and she can be with her husband. So the law is that she cannot have even one hair sticking out of the water. You cannot have even one hair. So there has to be another woman there to watch, because you don't know if your hair is sticking out. You have to have another woman to watch, to see, to make sure that all the hair is underwater and not one hair is sticking out of the water. So this is called mikvah. This is a very holy thing that we do. And this whole idea that not one hair can be out of the water, that's how we're supposed to serve God. We're not supposed to leave any part of ourselves left. The way miracles happen is when you don't leave anything left. You give your whole self to God. You don't leave anything else behind. And then you think when you give your whole self, there's going to be nothing left of you. There'll be nothing left. That's what you think. You think if I give my whole self to God, then I'll be gone. I'll be gone because I gave my whole self. But the truth is, no, that's when God makes miracles. Abraham gave his whole life. He sacrificed his whole life. He was willing to die to tell the truth, to tell the truth about God. And when he did that, God made a miracle. He didn't get burned, just like the menorah didn't burn. You can be in fire and not burn. And that's a miracle. And then we also see by Moses, if you read about Moses in the Bible, what does he see when he goes into the desert? He goes into the desert. What does he see? He sees a bush,
Burning bush.
a burning bush. So the bush is burning, but it doesn't get burned. Again, same thing. It's the same concept, the same idea. This bush is burning on and on and on, but it doesn't get burned. It's just like the Hanukkah menorah, just like the menorah. And just like Abraham. So Abraham was in fire. He didn't get burned. Moses saw a bush that was on fire and it didn't burn. And Abraham gave up his life and was thrown into a fire and he didn't burn.
Yes.
So there's something with this idea of burning and not burning. You're on fire, but you're not burning. This is a very important concept in Judaism. The fire that doesn't burn. It's a miracle. And you get that miracle when you give your whole life up to God. What did Moses do What did Moses do that was so special that God made him the leader of the Jewish people? Do you know? Do you know what he did? Do you know why God chose him to be the leader?
Because he rejected to be a son of Pharaoh, Pharaoh's daughter.
Paro?
Pharaoh's daughter's son. He rejected He rejected.
He rejected the idol worship?
No.
Yeah, the
Not
yes,
idol worship.
he want to become a king of this. He rejected that.
He was be going to the king of the Egypt, but he rejected that he is not that Pharaoh's daughter's son.
He want to help his people.
He want to say help his people.
But this is I'm talking about before that. Before that, like God chose him before that. So I just want to tell you what he did, because he was a shepherd, right?
Yes. He's run away from the Egypt, and he's living with.
He was a shepherd of many sheep, and one sheep was going off track. Was going off the track. All the sheep are going on track, and one of the sheep is going off. So most shepherds what would they do? They would hit with their stick, would hit the sheep, make it go back into the line, right? That's what most people would do. Yes. Sheep is going off, you would hit it and make it go back to the line. But Moses, he didn't do that. He said, maybe this sheep is thirsty. Maybe it's thirsty. So he took everybody to the river and gave it to drink. And then Moses said, this thirsty sheep was working for a long time when he was thirsty. So he's probably very tired. So Moses picked up the sheep, put it on his back, on his shoulder, and he carried the sheep back to the line. So you see how much he cared for every single being. This is part of the Noahide laws. Part of the Noahide laws is you cannot cause suffering to an animal. So we see how much care Moses gave to this animal. He cared to think that maybe it's thirsty, and then after it drank, he carried it on its shoulder. And that's why he was chosen to be Moses, the leader of the Jewish people, because of the way he treated a single animal. And this is very important. The way we treat animals is the way God is happy with us.
Yes.
It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful.
Yes, very beautiful.
Judaism is a beautiful
David
religion.
Also protecting the sheep.
David was also a shepherd. He was also a shepherd. Hold on.
Yes, David కూడా మనల్ని sheep ని బలి చూసుకునేవాడు. ఆయన కాస్తున్నాడు. అమ్మాయి పేరు నాకు గుర్తు రాకుండా ఆయన పేరు. మిరియం కాదు, వాళ్ళ సిస్టర్. ఆయన వాళ్ళ మామ దగ్గర ఉన్నప్పుడు ఆమె అక్కడికి వెళ్ళిపోతాడు చూడు. ఈజిప్ట్ వదిలిపెట్టి కొన్ని రోజులు వెళ్ళిపోతాడు 40 years. చెప్తాను మళ్ళీ స్టోరీ. ఆయన పేరు ఒకటి ఉంది, అదేందో మర్చిపోయింది.
Okay, so King David, we'll talk about King David now. He lived in a city called Beis Lechem. And he sat alone with his sheep. His father's name was Yishai. And David was the youngest son. He was the youngest of all the sons. And they put the youngest person in charge of taking care of the flocks of sheep. But David, he did not like to be with the other boys who are his age. He would lead his sheep away from the desert. He took them to the desert. Why the desert? Because nobody owns the desert. If he takes them in the city, they might eat from somebody's plants, and that's stealing. So David was very careful in the Noahide laws against stealing. So that's why he brought his sheep to the desert, not in a city where they could trample. Even if the sheep just trample on somebody's lawn, on their grass, this is stealing. He didn't want to be stealing, because even if they would just trample on the grass, this would be considered stealing. So he took them to the desert. So that way the sheep can go wherever they want and not trespassing on anybody's city. So David, he chose to be alone. He wanted to be far away from people, far away from the noise of the city. A lot of the righteous people in Judaism, when they were living in their early days, like when they were young, in their youth, they stayed away from people. If you want to be righteous, you can do a lot of things, but the first step to being truly righteous is get away from people, because people drag you down. Once you're strong, spiritually strong, then you can go affect other people. But the righteous people, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, at the beginning of their life, they always stayed away from people. Very important. So David stayed away from people. He wanted to be alone. Even though later in his life, he did so many things. He accomplished so much. But in the beginning of his life, he was alone. So in the desert, he could be alone with God. He could watch the world around him and see how everything fits together. So when he would be in the desert, he would be looking at how things fit together. Like, wow, it's amazing how the sun rises and the plants grow, and then the sun sets. Give the chance that also contributes to their growth. Everything in nature is all working together. Everything's working all together. So he became part of nature and part of the beauty of everything that was going on. So he saw the sheep again, just like Moses. He saw the sheep. He noticed the stronger, grown-up sheep used to push aside the old goats and the young goats. So these sheep are pushing aside the goats. Then, when the sheep pushed aside the goats, they got to eat the best grass. The best grass, because they pushed them away. So was this nice? This was not nice. The sheep are pushing away the goats so they can get the best grass. When they finished eating, there was nothing good left over. Nothing good was left over. So these goats and the weaker sheep couldn't chew the tough grass that was left. So David, he felt pity for the young sheep and the weak and the old ones. They were not getting enough to eat. So he built wooden pens for the sheep and separated them according to age. So he made like these pens out of wood. And he said, all the sheep that are 1 year old are going to go in this pen. And all the sheep that are 2 years old are going to go in this pen. All the sheep that are 3 years old are going to go in this pen. He made pens for every age group of the sheep. And then he let the young ones out first. Because remember, the way it was working was the young sheep were getting pushed out and the goats were getting pushed out, and they would barely have anything to eat. So David built this structure where he was able to let out the young ones first. So the young ones could go out first. And then when the young ones are done eating, the older ones come. So he made this whole system. When they had eaten their fill, he herded them back into their pens. When he let them out, the old goats, the stronger teeth, were able to crush the silver grass. Finally, when the old goats were full, he opened the pens. When God saw this, Hashem, he said, "You take care of your sheep so wisely. You give each sheep what he needs, according to his strength or according to his weakness. You will make the right shepherd for my people, Israel. So the sages say that God always tests the righteous person with sheep, God does not give a person greatness before testing him with a smaller way. So Moses and David both took their sheep to the desert. They both took their sheep to the desert to keep away from their fields from theft. And when they proved themselves trustworthy shepherds, they were raised to greatness, both Moses and David. Hashem said to David, "You have found my trustworthy. You have been found trustworthy with the sheep. Come and tend to my flock." Hashem took David away from the sheep and anointed the king of Israel. So both leaders.
అప్పుడు మోసెస్
These were the two greatest leaders ever of the Jewish people. The two greatest leaders, Moses and David.
Yes.
And what did they do to become such great leaders? They took care of sheep. They took care of animals. That is how you become a great person. That's why I'm not as great, because I don't have any animals. I need animals. I need to take care of animals. So now we know, we learned a couple of things. We learned how to make miracles. How do we make miracles? We give our whole soul to God. And then you'll be in fire, but you will not be burned. And we also learned another thing. How do we become a great leader of the human people, the humankind? Take care of the animals. That is how you become a person.
Yes.
Okay, guys.
Mommy doesn't like it.
But I love but not much.
Nice.
We have plenty of this.
మోసెస్ దానికి చెప్పలేవా సెలెక్ట్ అయి ఉన్నారు
How many do we have?
We have left around 7 to 8.
So they're for our whole class.
Yeah.
So how many people are going to come to the next class?
I think 4 more, the same people, and I think soon people will be adding. We'll be adding people.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.